when truth is stranger than fiction. Former Oregon Governor Kate Brown released a cold-blooded killer, period, who executed a teen girl by marching her into the forest and shooting her in the back of the head, exploding her brains into the trees. Now he sits on Salem's police review board, and they're thinking about, maybe he shouldn't be there. This is pure insanity, Oregon style. Let's get into it. Here we go.
Developing tonight at 5, the Salem City Council weighing whether to revisit its decision to reappoint a convicted murderer to a police oversight position. 𝗨𝗏𝗪𝗏 served 28 years in prison for a 1995 murder and was appointed to the board unanimously in 2024. Council.
A police review board. Guy's a convicted, cold-blooded murderer. And they're going to reappoint him to a police review board.
Reappointed him earlier this month with a 5-4 vote, but backlash from public safety unions making some city leaders reconsider. Good evening. Thanks for staying with us for K2 News at 5. I'm Deborah Knapp. K2's Vasily Varlamos is live in Salem tonight. Vasily, the president of the Salem Police Union says the issue goes beyond one individual.
Yes, President 𝗥𝗘𝗠𝗜𝗨𝗠 says the controversy points to broader gaps in how the city evaluates candidates for public safety roles. But 𝗥𝗘𝗧𝗛 says that his perspective can provide valuable recommendations for criminal justice reform.
When you're 18 years old, you were convicted of murdering, premeditated, a young girl who was going to maybe tattle on you for the robberies you had committed, for the theft that you had committed. And you chose your own freedom over this girl's life. And you've served 27 years in a state pen. And you want us to believe that you have something to contribute? I'm a hard no-go. I'm a hard no-go. This guy shouldn't be out. He had life with no parole. And that's why the mom didn't go after the death penalty. We'll get to that in a little bit here. But, I mean, this whole story, this is justice reform that's gone sideways. Why on earth would you put this guy on a public safety board, on a police review board? Because he's been incarcerated for 27 years and he knows what the inside of prison is like. Now, all of a sudden, he's an expert on public safety? Yeah, I don't think so.
Early December, the Salem City Council voted to reappoint 𝗨𝗏𝗪𝗏𝗪 to the Community Police Oversight Board. 𝗥𝗏𝗪𝗪 served 28 years in prison for murdering a Roseburg teenager in 1995. The board reviews complaints against officers and serves in an advisory role to the police chief. Members also participate in ride-alongs and receive training from officers. The decision surprised the Salem Police Employees Union president, 𝗥𝗘𝗠𝗜𝗨𝗠.
To think that we're providing education on kind of how we do what we do to someone with that criminal history, that doesn't seem too smart.
But 𝗥𝗘𝗧𝗛 himself says people with lived experiences in the criminal justice system should have a voice in advisory roles. He noted his position.
Lived experience. So you were incarcerated because you committed a horrific crime. And now you've got this lived experience. That's what the Democrats eat up. Oh, he's got lived experience. He's going to be able to show us the way. And you're like, yeah, no, I don't think so. Hey, guy's done his time. The guy gets his sentence commuted, whatever. All right. But that doesn't mean you necessarily need to put him on a safety board, oversight board, especially a police oversight board. Whole thing is just it's so Oregon. It's so Oregon. Let's see how woke we can be. And we'll just, we'll beat our way down to the bottom because that's where we're headed.
Can only make recommendations, not actual policy changes. And excluding him could lead to less perspectives to consider.
That tells me that it's
excluding him could lead to less perspectives considered. You mean the convicted murderer of cold-blooded murder is... We need to consider that perspective. And the fact he did 28 years, that's the perspective that we need to consider. The lessons that he learned from literally killing a young girl, thinking about it, planning it, and doing it, and then getting caught and convicted. That's the perspective that we need to have and we need to consider. I think you're off your rocker if you think that's true. I think you're mental. I think you're opening up society to massive gaps in public safety when you put these kind of people in these positions. Because you want people who haven't broken the law on these kind of positions. That's just a little hint, little insider tip, a pro tip there. But don't trust me. What do I know? I live in Washington State.
Really about you don't want anyone with lived experience in an advisory position. Not even in a committee that has no teeth.
Hedquist says his reappointment is being judged on politics rather than 2 years of service on the board. One counselor who voted to reappoint Hedquist, 2026 mayoral candidate Vanessa Nordyke, committed to changing her vote following conversations with Nowning and other union members. Nordyke did not respond to inquiries today, but did make a lengthy social media post explaining her change of heart, saying in part, "The police and firefighters unions each raised legitimate concerns I had not fully considered. After weighing this new information, I realized I should have sought broader input before the vote. He should be removed from the public safety boards."
Here's a video from when this guy was released from prison. Nikki Thrasher's killer released without family being informed. As a parent who's lost a child, my son Brennan was 27. We would have just celebrated his 30th birthday on December 17th, a couple of weeks ago. There's only two circumstances that I think are worse than having a child go before you. And that's if the child died from self-inflicted suicide. Suicide. Horrible. Because then you'd be like, oh my gosh, is there anything I could have done? You just, all this self-doubt, all this just crazy stuff. Oh, my kid was hurting so bad. It was so bad. And I did such a bad job as a parent that he killed himself. That's number one option. That's pretty crappy. Number two, you got it. Murdered. Like our story here. Murdered. Somebody took your kid's life. Horrific. Just no way around the horrific nature of having a child murdered. And the Kate Brown, governor of Oregon, doesn't even have the decency to call the victim's parents. Hey, because she doesn't want to hear about it. She's just concerned about justice reform. Oh yeah, it's the greatest thing ever. Let's let killers out on the streets, and it should be great. It's gonna be great. Oh, let's hear how this video goes.
Mother of a murder victim was never told about her daughter's murderer being released by the governor until today, and that was when KOIN 6 reached out to her.
This is Kyle Hedquist. He was convicted in 1994 of the murder of Holly Trasher's daughter, Nikki. Now, Hedquist was released from prison earlier this month after his commutation was approved by Governor Brown. Our Brandon Thompson digging deeper into this more. And Holly didn't know any of this. The mother didn't know that her daughter's killer was being released. No one from the governor's office ever reached out.
It's unbelievable to think that. She didn't even know the case was being considered until I had to tell her about that earlier today. Now, Holly was a...
Could you imagine getting a call from this reporter? I'd like your comment as the mother of the deceased and the killer, the convicted killer, the cold-blooded killer of your daughter is being released today. What kind of comment do you have on that? Do you think this is a good idea? And the mom would be like, what? What are you talking about? Have to hear it from a reporter. That the person who murdered your child is getting released into society. Horrible. Yeah, justice reform is just a big pile of crap. That's what it is.
Extremely upset to hear that because she had asked Hedquist's sentence to be life without the possibility of parole instead of requesting the death penalty. This all happened in Roseburg in Douglas County in November of 1994. Hedquist was released into Salem because of safety objections in Douglas County. According to attorneys and the trial that convicted Hedquist, he stole some things from his aunt, Nikki Thrasher. Not knowing anything about the theft, had asked about the items. Hedquist took that as a threat to him. Hedquist had Nikki drive him out to the rural areas of Douglas County. There, he shot her in the back of the head. Nikki's mother cannot believe that Hedquist is free right now.
He took the life of my daughter.
Yeah.
I mean, in cold blood.
Yeah.
It was a cold blood murder. They planned it.
As a community, we have a right to expect better from our leadership and expect that they're going to protect us in a way that we deserve. And these types of releases are not reflective of public safety. They're not reflective of good decisions.
Online, we have found a fundraising effort Hedquist was a part of, as well as an essay he wrote as part of a prison writing contest. We have requested records around the decision into Hedquist's release, and our previous reporting notes this is one of several cases where Governor Kate Brown has not contacted the families of these violent crimes. Now, the governor's office hasn't responded with a reason that clemency was granted, nor has...
You know where this wouldn't happen? Oklahoma. Because the murderer would be dead. He'd be executed. He'd be gone. Wouldn't be sitting on a police review board. He'd be dead. Nuttiness. Absolute nuttiness, right? How you go from point A to point B in this story. You know, there's just some big, massive disconnect, isn't there? Here's that Oregon life. Former Oregon Governor Kate Brown. Terrible. Terrible. Let's get down to Hedquist was convicted of aggravated murder for killing Nicki Thrasher in 1995 when he was 18 years old. So old enough to go to war, old enough to vote, you know, old enough to drive, so old enough to convict. My thought. All of a sudden, oh, he's only 18. Shouldn't be in there the rest of his life. Why not? How come? Prosecutors said the crime was calculated and deliberate. 1994, Hedquist feared Thrasher would report him to police for hiding stolen property. To silence her, he drove her down a remote logging road and shot her in the head, back of the head. He then dumped her body along the remote logging road in Douglas County. I mean, life in prison. No reason he should be out, period. Second chances? No, I don't think so. I just don't. I'm like, no go. I don't have that. I'd be a no-go. It's like, all right. Law enforcement officials described the killing as cold-blooded execution-style violence. This was not a crime of passion. It was a conscious decision to end a young woman's life in order to avoid accountability. But then let's go ahead and put him on a police review board, because that seems to make absolute sense. It's nuts. It's absolutely nuts. Prosecutors later stated that Hedquist admitted the motive was to prevent her from going to police. Well, when you murder somebody and drop off their body in a creek, down in a gully, yeah, there's probably not a lot of chance unless they find that body of them going to the police. Instead, it's more likely that you're just going to create a murder scene, which is what you did. Despite the severity of the crime and the original life sentence imposed by the court, Hedquist's punishment was reduced when Kate Brown commuted his sentence in 2022, making him eligible for release decades earlier than intended. Why? Why are we doing that? Why are we doing that? Well, because you're a libtard and justice reform is high on your list. That decision drew immediate condemnation from law enforcement leaders across Oregon. Yeah, you think? Douglas County Sheriff John Hanlon publicly opposed the clemency, calling the murder calculated, cold-blooded, and execution style. Said the decision to release Hedquist was shocking and irresponsible, and it rejected the justice delivered on behalf of Nicki Thrasher, her family, and her friends. Hanlon noted that Brown ignored objections from multiple law enforcement leaders, including district attorneys and sheriffs, who warned against early release. Yeah, why would you do that? Why would you do that? Well, because you're woke and you're intent on going broke, and to get there, you will do things like release a convicted killer into your society because you think, we need to hear from a lot of people with lived experience. You mean like murder? You mean that kind of lived experience? Murder? All right. Okay. All right. What many Oregonians did not learn until later was that the families of the victims were often not properly notified. Terrible. Terrible. For many Oregonians, this is not a debate about second chances. It's about moral boundaries. It's about whether society still recognizes that some crimes permanently disqualify a person from positions of authority, period. That's where I would sit on this one. Yeah, I don't care. I don't care how many times you've written, I've been a bad boy. I was a bad boy before I came to prison on the chalkboard. I don't care how many times you do that. I think there is a moral line that is, you can't cross it. And that means these people, if you want to go talk to a prison review board, if you want to be on that, all right, you probably got some skill set to be able to, speak intelligently there, coming from a lived experience. But police oversight? Police review? Yeah, absolutely nuts. The decision has left residents asking how a system could allow a man who executed 19-year-old Nikki Thrasher to walk free without her family even being notified and then be placed in a position of authority in Salem, Oregon, overseeing the police sworn to protect the public. Just the entire thing is like, what? Doing what? Why are we doing this? Give me a good reason you do this. And the lived experience thing, don't care. So, how does this make any sense at all? I guess because I'm more conservative and I kind of think, well, commit a crime, you get what's coming to you, one way or the other. And you shouldn't ask for, well, I've got lived experience, therefore I should be on this. No, you should be in prison. You should be in prison. For many, the answer is as unsettling as the decision itself. 100%. 100%. Like, how did we get here? How did this happen? What made thinking that this was a genius concept, right? This decision was good. Justice reform. It's kind of like housing first, but way more extreme because you're letting convicted criminals back out on the street. Oh yeah, this is good. This is going to be the greatest thing ever. We're just going to allow them to be free. People have committed serious crimes like murder. Prosecutors at the time said Hedquist admitted to killing Nikki Thrasher to eliminate a witness in hope of preventing his own capture. He's thinking about himself. But then he's got 28 years of lived experience in the prison system. Now we put him on a review board of public safety. Okay. All right. Yeah. There's a disconnect here, isn't there? There's a disconnect. It's like, doing what? Why? Hedquist was sentenced to life without possibility of parole. He was also sentenced on charges of robbery in the first degree and 3 counts of kidnapping in the second degree for a separate incident in which he robbed a local Pizza Hut at gunpoint. All right. So yeah, robbed a local Pizza Hut, 3 counts of kidnapping, robbery, murder, and yet you're going to be on the police review oversight board. Okay. Doesn't make any sense, does it? Makes 0 sense. But this is Oregon. This is Oregon. And this is why Oregon is so screwed up. You've got people in top positions. You've got a constituency voting these kind of knuckleheads in, and then these knuckleheads in office make these decisions. Right? It's like Tim Walz saying, I want to have even more Somalis come into our community. I'm like, yeah, but maybe you should get through the whole fraud thing you got going on here first, the daycare fraud, because Lord knows the autism fraud didn't work out all that well for you. How many people did you have convicted that vast majority were Somalis? And you're looking at bringing more Somalis into your community? Good luck with that one there, Tampon Tim. Just some decision making that you're like, probably a no-go. That would be a no-go for me. Just like releasing this guy and then putting him in a position of some kind of, authority. He's on a board. absolutely nuts, right? Here's how our killer justifies it. You need people that have kind of been through some of the stuff to be advising or offering, their side of the story. You mean how to murder somebody? How to commit a robbery? How to kidnap somebody? You mean that? I don't think so. And when you don't have anyone that's had any experience, then you don't have the full story. Maybe it's not about having your experience. Maybe it's about having somebody else's experience that is actually beneficial to this board. What about that? So because murdering somebody, robbing somebody, kidnapping somebody, those aren't skill sets that I think that we need to hear from. And you can throw whatever else you want in there. Oh, but I'm reformed. I've done this. I've done that. I don't really care. That's just kind of how I feel. Hedquist said that if the council ultimately decides to remove him, he would accept that decision, but hopes the discussion leads to broader inclusion rather than exclusion. At some point in time, I think you got to say, you know what? I should probably be excluded. I decided to murder somebody. We're not talking white collar crime here. We're talking you murdered somebody. You took somebody else's life. You planned it out. And then you did a bunch of other stuff that pales in comparison to the big crime, which is murder. They don't want me on that board, then they can easily vote me out. Well, I'm hoping that that's the case. City officials have acknowledged the background checks were not consistently conducted for board appointments, even though city rules allow councilors to consider criminal history when making decisions. All you got to do is Google this guy's name, and these horrific stories pop up. Took me about 2 seconds. I literally put his name in search, and boop, all the stuff that I'm reading to you now is what we're doing. Councilor Nishioka has announced plans to introduce a separate motion to establish more straightforward guidelines for how criminal history should be considered when appointing members to the Police Review Board. I've got a recommendation. How about no murderers are accepted on the Police Review Board? And then on a, crime by crime basis, I'll probably either give my yay or nay, right? Rape? No. Yeah. Aggravated assault? No. Grand theft auto? No. No. Kidnapping? No. Murder of any kind. Any kind. Hard no-go. So that'd be considered when appointing members to the Police Review Board. Wild stuff, right? I mean, it is so ridiculous that we're even having this conversation. That's bottom line here. Just, it's mind-blowing to me. You did what? What happened? Make sure you're subscribed, hit that notification bell, the like button. I'll see you in the next episode. Thanks for joining. Bye for now.